one of the things that we were kind of scratching our heads over yesterday was the Biden administration coming out and said, oh, guys, now we actually can do something on the border. We're not going to say what, but we're going to consider doing something, maybe weighing some sort of executive action to deter illegal immigration. And a lot of people, including my next guest, have been saying, well, you could have done this the entire time. This is something that you could have done this whole period. Because Texas has been really kind of leading the fight. I mean, not really, but has been leading the fight in this. And of course, right at the forefront of that, Attorney General Ken Paxton, who joins us now via Skype. General, good to see you. So glad that you have been such a leading warrior in this fight to basically secure our southern border. I just kind of wanted to get your reaction to the administration now coming out and saying, we can use an executive order, I guess, to deter what's happening at the border. Where was this like these years ago?
Well, they did exactly what they wanted from day one, because on day one, they said they were not going to deport anybody. Of course, our lawsuit started 3 days later against them. So this is about the next election coming up. They've done what they wanted to do. They've allowed, not just allowed, they have made the situation so that the cartels could get as many people here as fast as possible. This isn't just them allowing, they were participating. Because remember, the way Border Patrol is supposed to work, they're supposed to like hide from us. They don't hide from us anymore. They come to us. It's like we raise our hand, we're over here, we want to find you, where are you? Get us to where we're supposed to go. It's all a deal, right? It's not in writing, it's not anywhere written down, but it's certainly the way it's supposed to operate. Now we've got an election where Biden's in a lot of trouble on the immigration issue, and so he's 6-7 months out, and he's thinking, well, let's just say now that we're for cutting off illegal immigration. I think that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it seems like it. It also seems like the steps that he took, just his first day, I think it was 4 or 5 executive orders that he had that specifically looked at everything from the Flores Agreement to the Remain in Mexico, those migrant protection protocols, all of those he just suspended with his pen. That was what he did on day one. And I never understood the argument that, well, he did that with executive order, so why can't he undo it with executive order?
Well, and yeah, there's statutory provisions in place, and Trump, all he did was take advantage of what the laws were at the time.
Right.
Whether it Remain in Mexico, Title 42, whether it was building the wall that was appropriated, whether it was stopping catch and release. All these things were in place when Biden walked into office, and he's dismantled all of them illegally and encouraged the cartels to, make as much money as you can, as fast as you can, while we have the chance. And that's exactly what happened.
So really, it's not an exaggeration to say that this is, it's kind of like a Mexican standoff where we have that at the border right now with the federal government. And where does this go from here? I know that you've been litigating this, but this period, this purgatory period that we find ourselves stuck in before the courts decide to do something, it's just getting worse and worse. It's not sustainable. So what do we do?
Yeah. So, obviously the election's coming up. We've got to change our leader, or this is going to continue, because the courts take a long time. We're in we've got at least 4 major lawsuits right now related to the border, and those are going to continue. And I feel like we should be successful, but we can never quite count on Supreme Court to necessarily go our way. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We lost the injunction, which, by the way, doesn't mean we're going to not put the fences up and the wire up. We're just, apparently they can just cut them down when they want to, but we'll just put them right back up. So it doesn't deter us. It's just ridiculous that the Supreme Court, on a very close decision, let them do that. But we have other lawsuits, and I think one of the most important, Texas passed legislation finally. I'd asked for it for years, and they passed it, which allows us to deport people. And we got sued by the Biden administration and the ACLU, which kind of expect they'd be together, to stop deporting people from Texas, because even though he's running and saying that he wants to, maybe should do something about illegal immigration, actual practicality, we're still fighting them.
Yeah. And talking with Texas AG Ken Paxton, you mentioned these lawsuits and filing suit against the federal government for this. But, if this border bill would have passed, that would have stripped you of this ability to do it and moved everything centrally. Will you tell people exactly how that would have tied your hands?
So what a disaster it would have been. I cannot believe it was being sponsored by Republicans. It would have basically given Joe Biden the opportunity to say, see, all this stuff I've done, the Republicans approved it, including, granting asylum ability to Mayorkas. He could just make his own decisions. Obviously, just importing people that beyond the law, what the law currently allows. But the main thing for us beyond that was that now we couldn't sue them in Texas. We couldn't sue, and other states couldn't sue them in their states. We'd all have to go sue in the DC circuit, which is not the most favorable environment for us. And the Senate knows that. The Republicans
You're
know
so
that.
nice and polite in how you describe it. I mean, they're leftier than the Ninth Circuit, I think.
Yes, it is liberal. And so why would the Senate, Republican Senate, want to stop Texas from, why would John Cornyn and James Langford and Mitch McConnell want to stop Texas from protecting our border through legal action based on the law? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, without you and a few other attorneys general leading this fight, and I think you were right out of the gate with it. There would be no check and balance on this administration. There would be no way to sue in your local federal court to fight this, and I think it would have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah, and which it's just hard for me to fathom why the Republicans wanted this. This would hurt our ability to do things in Texas, but it would really hurt the whole immigration battle. We'd be basically saying, okay, we give up. Let's just let Joe Biden do what he wants to do and import all these people and do all these things that now are illegal. Let's just say, okay, since he's done it for 7 years, let's right before the election bail him out, and then we'll take responsibility and put it on, I guess, Trump, who then would be in a position of defending what? I don't know what he'd say about the Republicans. He'd have to admit that they messed this up.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Talking with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Another point, and then I want to talk about what Governor Abbott has said too about building the wall and all of because they're very angry that he keep just forging ahead, which that you should on behalf of Texans. But the encounters, because it was on page 212 I read the bill, 370 pages. It was on page 212. I marked my whole thing up. But it talked about these encounters. And I loved the semantics of the left. They were trying to say, well, they're not talking about people that they're going to let in. They're just talking about encounters. But from what I understand, those encounters directly translated to, we're just going to let people in. We'll give you a date with an immigration judge, and then you can come back a few years later. Is that a correct way to put it?
Even worse than that. It would have given Mayorkas the ability to just let him in, and then he, instead of a judge, would decide who he wanted to grant asylum to. So we just have a little czar who would just grant whoever he wanted to come into the country. And now it's a one-man show. And so it's actually even worse than that. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, and incredibly hard to believe. Texas Governor Greg Abbott was talking about the border wall. They're now arresting 39,000 illegal immigrants for crimes committed on U.S. soil, and has seized 458 million lethal doses of fentanyl. This has been in Texas since 2021. And then when Texas began deploying General, these force multipliers, the razor wire and the floaty things in the middle of the Rio that are temporary and can be moved, that's when the crossings began to sort of move elsewhere where they did not have these mitigating these force multiplier things. Talk to me a little bit about that, because the enforcement's worked.
Oh, it's absolutely, people build walls all the time. They build fences. Why? Yeah. They do it all over the world. People build fences around their yard. Why? Yeah. Keep people out. It actually works. It's been working for thousands of years, and everybody knows it worked. And that's why the Biden administration took the appropriated money and wasted it, and they paid contractors to do nothing. All the materials rotted. It was billions of dollars of lost revenue that just was wasted, and he violated his constitutional role of using appropriated funds the way he's directed. He's not the guy that gets to he's not a king, and he's supposed to follow the law. He did not do that. So these things work, and that's why I think Donald Trump wanted to build that wall.
Yeah. Last question for you, General. Let's just say that every worst possible outcome could happen. Let's just say that the lawsuits, which I tend to agree with you, just, on the merit, I don't see how anything is decided against this, but let's just say worst outcome on everything. How far is Texas willing to go to secure the southern border, knowing that most Texans would back whatever y'all would probably do? How far are you willing to go?
So for me, I mean, they don't give me a bunch of soldiers. My job is to go to court and fight them every day I can. So I'm willing to fight them on every possible thing. And if the governor wants to defend that border and continue to defend that border, I will defend him. So I've got his back as far as he wants to go in defending that border and protecting our citizens. Because the reality is right now, our citizens are subject to lots of crime, including, as you know, the fentanyl crisis, which is killing our children. And I know too many kids that are dead because of it. And I mean, this is the most heartbreaking thing that I deal with.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have the potential terrorism threat. We know it's coming because they're letting all these people in. So I feel like we have a right, and I don't think Texas would have come into the union or any other state. They didn't think they could defend their border when the U.S. government wasn't going to do it.
There you go, right there. I think a lot of Texans would have y'all's back as well. Attorney General Ken Paxton, appreciate your time. Thank you so much, sir. Good to see you. We'll talk again soon.